What's good? It's your boy Herb and welcome back to the show, The Transition. Today I am talking about changing the narrative. When I used to teach, I had a lot of kids come in and they would come in the classroom and they would talk about their parents in a way that made me close the door and take notes on the board of what everybody was frustrated about. And most of the guys that were frustrated about their fathers and what their fathers didn't do and how they should have done it and all this other stuff, and some with their mothers, and I'm looking at the narrative and I'm laughing because it's kind of funny when kids are given the idea that they can actually sit at the table with adults that are actually paying bills. So what I would do is I would wait until everything was done, let them finish their conversation and everything else, and then I would go back up to the board and I would ask, especially the ones that had iPads, iPods, iPhones, Jordans, and everything, who paid for those? Very, very few. I want to say 1 out of 10 would say that they paid for their own stuff. But I still get them, so I go for the other ones, the low-hanging fruit. I go for those first, where I'm asking, where do you think that it's okay for you to talk about your parents, mainly your father, on what he should or shouldn't do, but he still got you everything that you could get: iPhone, iPad, iPod, Jordans, whatever clothes was hot at that given point in time. You got all of this stuff from your dad, but you still feel the need to talk about him the way you talk about him, huh? But this was taught behavior because while everybody else was sitting around talking about his dad in front of him, it made it okay for him to be that same type of person. Now, I told a lot of people that I'm a couple of fights ahead. Don't get me wrong. I am not with the police brutality. I'm not with racism, but I've been fighting that since the 80s. It's retro to me. The way that things are going on now in the households, I believe Denzel Washington said it, and a couple of other, Morgan Freeman and a few other people in Hollywood had said the best way to arm our sons on how this is being a black male around police and racism and everything else is that they have to be open to hear that from a person that is a black male that can tell you exactly how to handle certain things. When I was teaching, I told these guys, I'm like, it seems to be like second nature for you guys to talk about your parents like they're, your friends or nobodies. And at that age, friends are people that they use, not people that help them out and they help them, and they help back. This is a friend is somebody that is a person that's around when only they need them, and they only do what they want them to do. And then when they're done with them, they can go on home and do whatever, and I'll call you when I need you again. For me, this fight is huge. And I don't think people understand how huge this fight is. When you put kids at the same table with adults and give them that idea that they can talk about another parent, they're never going to give that back, because that's all that a lot of kids are out here thirsting and thriving for, is to be an adult so they can make adult decisions until they get there. Same thing we were doing when we were younger. People said, I wonder what kids are thinking. No, nothing no different than what we were thinking when we were kids. Me, myself, and I had to be taught how to think outside of myself. It's very, very few kids that think about more than just themselves, So to me, as a father, I've, with my sons, had to change the narrative, and I just became the bad guy. I'm okay with that. I'm okay because my kids are not going to be my friends. I don't need my kids to be my friends. And if my kids are my friends, then that means there's something wrong with me, that my kids are my friends and I don't have friends. But with that, I told a couple of people, I said, my oldest son, I told him the truth of what took place with me and his mom. And it seemed like it ticked him off even more that I told the truth about that situation. So for me, what's aggravating is that as a father, especially if the relationship breaks, I got to be the bad guy all the time. I can't tell the truth because that hurts the child's feelings. I can't lie because everybody doesn't want you to lie. So I can't say, hey, you got to call me more than when you just need something. So what you're telling me is I'm supposed to be your doormat. And if I'm not the doormat, then nobody wants to get down with me. And this is what I'm talking about when I say changing the narrative. As fathers, I'm not saying that we need to say what's going on, but I'm saying as a unit of parents now, we need to stop allowing our kids to be a part of adult conversations. You can't ask a boy to man up that hasn't even been taught how to be a boy, If your dad has left, that doesn't mean that he's the little man of the house. He is a boy. He is not a little man of the house. He's frustrated because now he has to do the job that his dad had to do, but he's also confused because he doesn't know if he's mom's son or is he like mom's man. When you say the little man of the house, that sends so many different odd messages that kids don't get. And that's the same for girls. They can't be the little woman of the house if they haven't figured out how to be the girl. We got a lot of kids right now that have been thrusted in these positions because of a relationship breaking. Now, here is where you change the narrative, is that if this was a relationship that didn't have a strong foundation from the beginning, children shouldn't have been put on top of that. You can't build up if your foundation is horrible. So now we can't say anything about that because the kids are here and everybody's like bent out of shape that you say anything about it. Okay, so now what are we going to do to change the narrative for these kids so they can respect both parents? Because I noticed that a lot of parents think that they're getting a lot of respect until the truth is told. And then when the truth is told, the kid still tries to disrespect the parent outside of the household, but he also decides to disrespect the parent on the inside. Here's the thing, man. We have to start changing the narrative of how we're going to parent. We got to step up, take responsibility for the things that we did so we can get past these supposedly baby daddy dramas, but really more so bad decision mamas. Couple of my female friends, I know you knew that this guy did not want children with you. Why did you have children? Same thing I said before, you can't build up on a weak foundation. We got a lot of broken homes that really didn't start off as homes in the beginning anyway. And you got a lot of men that are out here being nice and not saying anything out of the way and allowing children to make him the bad guy, including myself, that have let this go on for years and years and years just to appease, but to get a few broken moments with your children and still try to send whatever you can send to your children just to get those moments. That's why I say I'm a couple of fights ahead of the fight that we're finally wanting to fight as a race of racism and police brutality. I'm like, this has been around for a long time. We have to stick together as a race, but as a men, black men, we got to start sticking together in order for people to understand how it goes. Because, man, trust me, there's a lot of people that love our swag. We just have to start loving each other and stop doing. There's not one other person on the face of this earth that doesn't get together. We don't get together as black men. If we see each other out on the street, we got to mean mug each other. If we don't know each other, we're so concerned with posturing and making sure you see me and making sure that you understand how tough I am, is that this could have been a person that got you a job. Because all of that stuff that's going on in Chicago with everybody hitting and drilling and everybody shooting everybody, man, when you get to a certain age, you're going to have to learn that you got to take care of your family, and all of that street stuff disappears, man. But I know it's been changing the narrative. I know that the only person that seems like he's out there getting it is the street pharmaceutical person that's out there, and you see him on a day-to-day basis, so you think, man, I got to be like him. We all had our own minds, and I seen a lot of guys that were out there on the streets hustling, and I didn't need to be any of these guys. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, that's because I have a mind of my own. And that's changing the narrative and making people accountable for what they do. If you're going in and out of jail, that is your fault. That is not your father's fault. That is not your mother's fault. That is not anybody else's fault but yours. Stay out of jail, because this is where everybody tells you when to get up, when to sleep, when to crap, when to do everything. If I'm not mistaken, the reason you went to jail is because you didn't want to do what anybody told you to do. But then you go to jail and everybody tells you what to do. It makes no sense to me. None whatsoever. We got to change the narrative of how this goes. We have to start loving ourselves and not being afraid to take what's there for you. I tell my sons, I tell my daughters, I don't care who you date. As long as that person cherishes you, that person could be purple. I don't care. But what I do want to change is that everybody states that we're supposed to spend money as black men with black women. No, I don't supposed to spend no money with nobody. I'm supposed to have somebody that's in love with me and I'm in love with them. But you got to change the narrative, but you have to be, you can't be afraid to talk about this stuff. We're finally getting a chance to talk about police brutality and racism now, but it's been going on for a long time. I think Will Smith said it from the beginning, is that it's just now being caught on everybody's phones now. So we all get a chance to see it, and we get a chance to see what's been going on. But the reality is that there is so much more we have to do. When I talk to my brothers in Chicago and they tell me it's 100 shootings in Chicago, 14 to 17 fatalities, we got a lot more work and we got a lot more to do than just police brutality and just racism. It's time for us to start looking in the mirror and figuring out how we change the narrative ourselves. I 100% always let people know I'm from Chicago. And yes, I did make it through some tough times in Chicago and some serious situations. But when you can say that almost every weekend we're looking at 80 to 100 shootings in the weekend, come on, man. It's time for us to change the narrative. It's time for us to start figuring out what's going on. And it's time for us to start protesting that as well. If we're tired, then let's be tired all the way around the board. Let's make sure that it's not just somebody white that we're going after, just somebody Mexican that we're going after. We're going after anybody that is treating us like doormats, and that's including ourselves. 100 people shot is ridiculous. 17 killed, and then I think I read it was a 4-year-old girl. Are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. But if we don't change the narrative, then you're going to have a whole lot of angry young men and women running around thinking that everybody owes them something because nobody is telling them you got to work for it. It's time we start changing this narrative and letting people know that if Black Lives Matter to you, then it should matter all the way around the board. Because I've been fighting this fight for a long time, so this ain't something that I've just been doing. Follow me back to when I was teaching at Addison. Trust me, I let everybody know. You know what I'm saying? So this is not something that I'm sitting around just jaw jacking about, or I'm talking from an angle that I don't understand. No, I've been on every side of this coin. So I know exactly what I'm talking about. And the only way you change it is that you actually get yourself out of it and see something different. Change the narrative. It's your boy Herb Dot, man. Listen, do something for somebody else. Trust me, it'll give you a chance to figure out where you're supposed to be. Holla at your boy. I got some more shows coming.